The 3.1 story for Honkai Star Rail was jam-packed with all sorts of things. We got to see Mighty ascend into a proper demigod, witness the overwhelming power of the Flame Reaver, and there was even that cliffhanger involving Castoris and the main character. While all these things were happening, two individuals flew somewhat under the radar. At the very end of the Trailblazer quest, we see a cutscene of both Anaxa and Cerces talking about some deal they secretly have. A deal that involves an experiment, the Titans, their core flames, and even death itself. But what exactly is going on here? Are both of them planning something despicable, or is their little experiment an attempt at saving amphoreus? That's what I'll be discussing in this video. Before I do though, if you want to see more Honkai Star Rail content, do consider subscribing to the channel. Now, given the cutscene I mentioned takes place at the literal tail end of the 3.1 Trailblaze quest, this video will have quite a few spoilers. So as usual, if you haven't cleared the main story yet, consider this your obligatory spoiler warning. After the dust settles on what is a rather chaotic 3.1, we see Anaxa and Cerces having a conversation in Okama. Up till this point, the assumption has been that their relationship was one born of necessity. The Grove was being attacked, the Flame Reaver wanted the Core Flame of Reason, and Anaxa was pretty much all but spent. This was why, at least on the surface, Anaxa and Cerces decided to work together, and how the Titan ended up in the body of the Grove Professor. In this closing conversation, however, it's revealed that there was some other agreement made between the both of them. One that involves answering a specific question posed by the Titan of Reason. What exactly are we? In exchange for finding the answer, Cerces would then help Anaxa restore his soul and return his body, which according to the Titan is quickly failing. While this deal perfectly encapsulates the law of equivalent exchange those in the Grove adhere to, what exactly is Cerces trying to figure out here? I mean, her question seems rather odd. Why ask about the nature of the Titans when Cerces is literally a Titan herself? You would think that a godly being such as her would know exactly what the Titans are, so what is she looking to learn from asking such a question? Well, as it turns out, it might be related to the true nature of the Titans, or rather their origins. According to the text found in the Protean Hero Divergent universe titled When Fate's Fruit Fell, the Titans materialized from the primal core flame that came from primordial chaos. While the text mentions that chaos did indeed spawn the first existence, it isn't explained why this happened. As such, the Titans might be aware of how they came into being, but not what they truly are. Plus, it's also not explained why chaos coalesced in this way. Was it a quirk of fate, or was there a guiding hand that influenced things? So I think that Cerces has essentially tasked Anaxa with not only figuring out what the Titans are, but also how it might have all started. This might also be why Castoris is needed as part of their experiments. Perhaps, to truly understand what a Titan is, one has to die and its constituent parts studied. What's funny about this is that either through coincidence or yet again fate, this just so happens to be the very same question Herta wants to ask Nous. It could be that Cerces' question of what exactly are we and Herta's question of what exactly is divinity is fundamentally the same question. This might even explain why Nous is present on amphoreus. If this really were the case, I suspect that Anaxa and Cerces' little experiment will end up leading them squarely into the gaze of Nous, given both parties are seeking the same answers. While this might mean that Anaxa could end up as a Genius Society member ahead of even Dr. Ratio, we still don't really know why Cerces, or Nous for that matter, wants answers to this. Perhaps Cerces merely wants to understand their place in the universe, or maybe there is something bigger at play here and the Titan of Reason wants to get to the bottom of it. Either way, the question Cerces asks and the experiment they are about to carry out is likely related to the true nature of the Titans. Now, figuring out where you came from or what you even are is a primal and almost instinctual need, but perhaps their true goals lie on the opposite end of that spectrum. What if the purpose of this experiment isn't to figure out their origins, but rather what happens to the Titans when they die? The Titans are, as far as we know, pretty old and have been around for quite some time. They are said to have created amphoreus itself and are even credited with the creation of humanity. They command existence itself, weaving fate, controlling time, and even bringing death to amphoreus. For a long time, nothing really threatened the Titans, and I'm sure they assumed the good times would continue. Things changed, however, when the Chrysos heirs attacked. With the prophecy picking up steam, Titan hunting became an acceptable pastime. Many in Amphoreus, having witnessed the Black Tide, experiencing war courtesy of Nicodor, and even having to experience death thanks to Thanatos, are now more than happy to sacrifice their gods in the name of self-preservation. On top of that, the Chrysos heirs aren't the only ones looking to kill the Titans, especially with mystery characters like the Flame Reaver now joining the fray. So with death looming around every corner, I'm guessing Cerces might be really interested in knowing what happens when Titans kick the bucket. Do they experience only darkness, or is there some kind of afterlife awaiting them, or do they just get reincarnated back into the loop? It's also possible that understanding where they go after they die is just a means to an end. There are stories within Greek mythology of heroic figures traveling to the underworld in search of their loved ones. Given Greek and Roman mythology heavily influences the Amphoreus story, maybe Cerces is really just looking for their deceased lover. As you may or may not know, the Titan of Reason and the Titan of Romance were pretty much an item, but Menastia fell long before the events of the current story. So maybe that is what Cerces is doing, learning of their divinity and the mechanisms of death, all in an attempt to save their lover. This might be why Anaxa and Cerces need Castorus, given her connection to the Titan of Death, Thanatos. She could literally be their key to the Amphoreus underworld. Plus, I don't know if this is a clue or not, but in a lot of the trailers and imagery, each time we have seen Thanatos or the Land of the Dead, there's also a lot of gold butterflies, the Titankin of Menastia. Read into that how you will, but this idea posits that Cerces is trying to understand what they are in order to determine where they might end up when they die. Now, trying to understand their origins or fate, while understandable, is still sort of a selfish endeavor. So what if Cerces is actually doing all this for a more benevolent reason? Instead of trying to save the Titans, maybe she's trying to save humanity. A prevailing idea in Amphoreus currently is that the story and planet exists within a loop, and whatever we are experiencing now has perhaps happened before. While I've been rather hard on Cerces, claiming they are doing this for personal or even selfish reasons, the Titan of Reason is still at the end of the day one of the few allies humanity has. So maybe this experiment and the search for this answer is really meant to save humanity and Amphoreus. Cerces is a pretty smart cookie, so perhaps they have figured out, or at least suspects, the true nature of Amphoreus being in a loop. Perhaps understanding the nature of the Titans and their divinity is the first step into breaking this accursed cycle. On top of that, Anaxa is likely the only person who would ever help them with this particular task, given he doesn't believe in the prophecy at all and would be more than happy to find an alternative solution to Amphoreus' problems. Maybe Cerces believes the miracle of Genesis is nothing but a pipe dream, and all it does is reset everything back to square one, ensuring those on Amphoreus remain trapped there forever. I mean, it's kinda in the name, as Miracle of Genesis just screams reset button. The prophecy might not be the salvation others think it is, and Cerces, alongside Anaxa, is just looking for an alternative solution, rather than purely relying on the prophecy. How this relates to Castorus and death, I don't really know, but maybe only through death can they fall outside the influence of the prophecy, and this experiment is to test that hypothesis out. Either way, it's possible that through this little experiment and Cerces trying to figure out their own divinity, is all an attempt to find an alternative solution to saving Amphoreus, one that doesn't involve the prophecy. Now, it wouldn't be a theory video if I didn't include something utterly convoluted, so this next one is going to be utter nonsense, but just hear me out. So far, we know Anaxa and Cerces are planning some kind of experiment that is related to what the Titans actually are. The ideas I've covered so far suggest that figuring out what the Titans are can either help them understand divinity itself, determine what happens when they die, and maybe even break out of the prophecy. But what if figuring out divinity isn't the full story, only just the beginning? What if, much like Jing Liu, Cerces wants to instead kill the Eons? It's essentially Godslayer Protocol 2 Electric Boogaloo. Yes, I know how dumb that sounds, because why in the world would Cerces even want to kill the Eons? Well, there are quite a few possible reasons. Firstly, maybe Cerces blames the Eons for Menestia's death, or maybe Cerces knows the Eons are influencing things on Amphoreus and wants to break free. Or maybe they are just unhappy with how the Eons just watch quietly while Amphoreus gets destroyed. There's plenty of reasons, but regardless, in order to kill the space gods, you need to understand both divinity and death, and perhaps that's what their experiment is all about. Of course, you might say that given Oronix's reaction to the Skyfather Fu Li, that the Titans likely look up to the Eons, but that doesn't have to be the case across the board. While Oronix might revere Fu Li, Cerces could perhaps despise them. I mean, Anaxa certainly seems like he dislikes Cerces, so who's to say Cerces would end up liking Nous? But that's about as convoluted as I'll get, and as with most theory videos, all of this is just random guesses at best. There are a ton of other ways this could play out, and truthfully, we know too little about their experiment to say for sure. Truth is, we might never know until the story progresses, and it might turn out to be nothing at all. So take what I share here with a grain of salt, and with that, I'll end the video here. What do you think Cerces and Anaxa are really planning? Will they end up going against the Chrysos heirs or find an alternative solution to saving amphoreus? Share your thoughts in the comments. If you found the video entertaining, do consider liking and subscribing to the channel. Thanks so much for watching, and as usual, have a nice day.